not really. We have very little to fear from a Mormon presidency. And there's three reasons why I suggest this. Number one, I think Governor Romney's Mormonism is going to be contained within the walls of the White House. Now, Governor Romney knows that 74% of his support, or 74% of evangelical voters support him right now. Now, he's a pretty politically shrewd operator. He knows he can't do anything to tick off. That's his largest demographic block of votes. He's not going to do anything to tick off evangelicals between now and November 6th. And realize this, if he gets elected on November 6th, he cannot afford to alienate those evangelical voters for another 4 years because he's got to think about 2016. So I think what this means for all practical purposes is Mitt Romney, as president, will be virtually silent about the distinctives of his Mormon faith. I even got an article in the Washington Post I read yesterday talking about the fact that Mitt Romney on the stump doesn't talk about Mormonism. He may make vague references to his church, but he never uses Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, hardly ever refers to his Mormon faith. He refers instead to Judeo-Christian values, not Judeo-Christian Mormon values, but to Judeo-Christian values. So Mitt Romney right now is going out of his way to minimize the distinction between his faith and the faith of Orthodox Christians. Now remember, when President Obama spoke, or when Mitt Romney spoke at Liberty University, he admitted, speaking to an evangelical audience, that you evangelicals and we Mormons follow, quote, different faiths. In other words, Mitt Romney didn't even try to pretend that we share the same religious system. And there's no question that Mormonism and Christianity are two different faiths. I have a different view of Revelation. The Mormons believe that the Book of Mormon is a third revelation. It's another testament to Jesus Christ. Christians believe that only the Old and New Testaments are inspired. Mormons have a different view of the Godhead. They believe in polytheism, whereas Christianity is clearly monotheistic. Mormons have a different view of Jesus Christ, believing that he was a man who became a God. Christians believe that he was the eternally pre-existent God, Son of God, who became a man. And they have a different view of humanity. Mormons believe that people actually can become gods in their own right, and Orthodox Christians reject that view. So for this reason and many others, there's a historian by the name of Stephen Mansfield. He wrote a book called The Mormonizing of America, and he said it would be more accurate to refer to Mormonism not as a variant of Christianity, but as a fourth Abrahamic religion, alongside Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and then Mormonism. Each of them have some distinctives between them that mark them out as so distinct that they ought to be treated as a separate individual religion. So he looks at Mormonism, and I think it's a good way to look at it, as a fourth Abrahamic faith. Now what this means, all told, is if Mitt Romney gets elected, I think the chances are nil that he will use the Oval Office to proselytize America on behalf of the Mormon faith. He knows if he were to do that, the outcry from the evangelical base would be long and loud, and the political risk for him is just going to be way too high because he knows he needs these same voters again, so he's not going to do anything that's going to turn them off. And you think about his time as governor of Massachusetts, and it's kind of oddly reassuring. When he was governor of Massachusetts, he didn't use his executive power there to proselytize on behalf of the LDS faith. In fact, on a number of issues like abortion, homosexual agenda, he actually governed against the deeply held tenets of his own Mormon faith, of the Mormon church. So he demonstrated there that he's not beholden to Mormon church orthodoxy in public service. And as I've said before, the problem that I have with Governor Romney is not that he's a Mormon, but that he has not been Mormon enough in his public life. And so my bottom line is this. Look, if Mitt Romney is not going to make a big deal out of his Mormonism, then maybe evangelicals don't need to either. Now, there's another aspect of this, and that is that Governor Romney may actually believe that when he talks about God, that he is talking about the same God that the Founding Fathers believed in, the same God that is presented to us, revealed in the Judeo-Christian tradition. And he's not going to talk about the differences between the Mormon view of God and the Christian view of God. So most Americans are going to think he's talking about the same God they believe in too. So he encourages public acknowledgement of God, paradoxically enough, because most Americans are going to think he's talking about the same God. He could wind up strengthening the faith of Orthodox Christians. So his advocacy of the public acknowledgement of God may actually wind up doing some good. And I'll talk about this a little more after the break. But thirdly, the Mormon Church's view of theology is not orthodox, but its view of politics is. I'll talk about that when we come back. Focal Point AFR Talk.